In just over half an hour, there'll be a minute's silence here at Anfield to commemorate a tragedy 20 years ago that took the lives of 96 football fans. Today's Football Focus is dedicated to the memory of those lost at Hillsborough on a day that gave no hint as to what would follow.
The FA Cup semi-finals, Wembley or bust. These are the great matches to win and the worst possible ones to lose.
Forest, like last year, have been allocated the Kop end. Meanwhile, Liverpool's faithful followers are at the Leppings Lane end.
It began so well. I mean, Jimmy Hill and I were there to record some links for that night's match of the day. So we did our bit at the beginning, recorded the links, and we went up in the stand and I said to Jimmy, do you realise, oh mate, we're getting paid for this? We were looking forward to it so much, and he rubbed his hands with glee. He said, isn't it great? He used to rub his hands like that.
There are fans on the pitch here in the 6-yard area. The referee's going to have to stop the game. There's an overflow behind the goal.
And then we saw fans being pulled up onto the higher tier of the stand. They were getting on people's shoulders and the guys above were pulling them up out of the way. So this wasn't hooliganism, they were in danger, these people.
And I can only assume that there was overcrowding, and as they tried to come out from behind the barriers, people at the front were crushed.
Why? Why didn't the FA give us the big ends? Why?
They opened the gates and they just let us walk in.
You are the eyes of the world. You are our eyes.
We saw some guys, and I went up to two guys, two grown men weeping on each other's shoulders. I said, guys, what's been going on in there? He said, they're dying in there. I said, dying? He said, dying. I mean, he got angry with me because I didn't kind of accept the word.
There's at least 50 people dead tonight.
I didn't have too much time to dwell on it. We had to get back to London to mount the programme that night.
Well, this was to have been a sports programme. You will understand that on a day of such momentous tragedy, it would be inappropriate to show football action.
The following morning I was going on holiday. I hadn't slept a wink, hadn't slept all night, so I was sitting there like a mess. And a guy came up to me, you know how fans talk to those of us who work in television, he said, cheer up, Des, it may never happen. And I said, you idiot, it just has happened. You know, it's one of those things.
Des Lynam was presenting Match of the Day on April the 15th, 1989. Here's one of the many moving testimonies we'll be hearing throughout the programme today. Well, these are the scenes around Anfield as fans make their way to the ground for today's game against Blackburn Rovers. To be honest though, the game itself feels like it's somewhat overshadowed by the memories of 20 years ago. And as we said a little earlier, there'll be a minute's silence just before kick-off at 12:45. We'll also be visiting the place where the tragedy happened. Then it was the FA Cup semi-final between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. Rather poignantly, today Sheffield Wednesday host Derby County in the league, and the club's managers Brian Laws and Nigel Clough were both in the Forest team on the day of Hillsborough. And here at Anfield I'm joined by Mark Lawrenson, who played for Liverpool of course for 7 years and knows all about the impact of tragedies on the football club. We'll hear from Mark a little later, but first let's remember the day itself and how an FA Cup semi-final between two of the most attractive teams at the time turned into the biggest disaster in British sport. Now, the nature of events 20 years ago means that viewers may find the following report upsetting, but this is how the events of the day unfolded on the 15th of April 1989.
The story bears retelling all the time. I mean, just the experience of the pens, it took me 15 years to tell that story without crying.
I wanted grandkids, I wanted the girls to do well, have a good marriage, and we can't have that.
We were at the scene, we could find out if everybody was okay. But they're sent home wondering and worrying, and every time the phone rang, you can imagine the kind of state that the families would have been in.
You know, time has gone by, but you know the scars will never ever be healed. It's, you know, and the fans will never ever forget it.
For so many of us, the details are burnt into our minds. But a generation has passed, Some football supporters, adults now, don't fully appreciate what happened that day.
It was a beautiful day, absolutely gorgeous day. I'll always remember a fella selling sunglasses, £1 a pair to keep out the glare, and that gives you an idea of the kind of day it was.
Trevor and Jenny Hicks and their teenage daughters, Sarah and Vicky, were Liverpool season ticket holders.
We lived in North London. We travelled up at least every couple of weeks and a lot more beside. People thought we were balmy, but it was the one thing that we did as a family, and we loved it.
To keep the rival fans apart outside, Liverpool supporters were given the western end of the stadium. This Leppings Lane end was the smaller of the two, its terrace divided by fencing into pens.
I have been back here, but only in the press seats a couple of times. Never been back to the Leppings Lane. When you came out of the turnstile, first thing you see is the tunnel, which hasn't changed at all. And that takes you to behind the goal, where I'd stood many times. And it was a really, really bad view. And a friend of mine had said, when you come through the turnstile, head left, because you can get up on the bank in the corner. And it wasn't signed. As I remember, I couldn't see a sign. I couldn't work out how to get left. If you were in a hurry, you just head for the tunnel. That's what you do. I went left. And it made all the difference for me.
We split up just outside the turnstiles. Jenny went off to her seat and the girls and I went in.
I think Vicky realised I was quite upset that I was going off to sit in the north stand on my own, and she called my name and ran up to me and gave me an extra hug and a kiss.
So they went off down the tunnel. I went to get a coffee. They always tried to dump me at about this point because obviously they had friends to see and they didn't want the old man hanging about.
So this is where I came to. It's the corner terracing overlooking the pens 3 and 4 right behind the goal at the Leppings Lane. It was surprisingly empty. There weren't that many people in this section. And that's what was weird about it, because FA Cup semi-final, you'd expect it to be absolutely rammed, and here it wasn't. And that obviously meant that somewhere else it was.
The pens behind the goal, fed by the central tunnel, were by 2:30 p.m. already uncomfortably full. At the same time, outside the turnstiles, a bottleneck had built up of Liverpool fans delayed in traffic. At the same match the year before, a police filtering system had eased the crowd's approach. This measure was not in place in 1989.
We actually got into the turnstile area about 2:30, put up with the crushing and what have you that was there, which was, you know, we knew it was bad and that, but this was FA Cup semi-final day, you know. Anyway, we ended up got into the ground at 2:50.
I was sitting just below the police control box. Literally, the steps up to it were, you know, if you like, I could almost touch them. And so we were sitting there and we think, well, it's getting a bit busy in there, but there was tons of room where we were.
From the police control box above the Leppings Lane terrace, Chief Superintendent David Duckenfield and his team monitored the terrace and the turnstiles on closed-circuit television. An officer outside, witnessing an increasingly desperate situation, radioed a request to open exit gates to relieve the pressure on the turnstiles. At 2:52 p.m, Chief Superintendent Duckenfield gave the order. Exit gate C was opened, opposite the tunnel leading to the already overcrowded central pens. The tunnel was not sealed off. The 2,000 supporters now entering the Leppings Lane end were not directed to the less crowded side pens.